Warning, the following podcast contains adult language, themes, and situations. Also, the film we're about to talk about is going to be spoiled thoroughly. Listener discretion is advised. Enjoy this show.
How can a noir tale featuring 3 Oscar winners that was directed by a Coppola and written by the same guy who wrote Green Book possibly be bad? We're about to find out, so come along with us as we have some fun time family fun breaking down Deadfall.
Okay, let's run.
I'm like a prickly pear. What do you say we cut the chit-chat a-hole?
Porker, how'd it get burned? How'd it get burned? How'd it get burned?
Hey, have you ever been dragged to the sidewalk and beat until you pissed blood?
Welcome to One Cage at a Time, the show where we break down every single Nicolas Cage movie, one film at a time. Here are your hosts, Patrick, Vince, and Nigel.
After accidentally killing his father during a con gone wrong, Joe, played by Michael Biehn, attempts to carry out his father's dying wish by tracking down something stolen by his dad's twin brother years earlier. But things soon take a twisted turn as Joe gets drawn back into the life he thought he'd left behind.
Let's see who's joining Nick on this adventure.
Deadfall features an all-star cast including Michael Biehn, Sarah Trigger, James Coburn, Peter Fonda, Charlie Sheen, Talia Shire, and of course, the one, the only, the brilliant Academy Award winner, Nicolas Coppola, better known as Nicolas Cage.
Wow.
This is our first one without him being the star of the movie. So
I know.
It was kind of sad only seeing him the little bit that we saw him in this movie.
Yeah, but he stole the show.
He definitely steals the show in this movie. There is no doubt about it.
Let's dive into the nitty-gritty.
It was released October 8th, 1993. The budget for this movie was $10 million, if you can believe that, and it made $18,369.
Oh,
God.
wow. I didn't realize it was such a success.
Yeah, that's not a good. You know, like I kind of figured, like certain movies like Grand Isle, it seems like it was actually just put out directly onto like a streaming platform or something like that where people could rent it, and I think that's where they got the $2,000 that it made or whatever. But this one was definitely in theaters. I mean,
this had a theatrical release.
Look at the frickin' cast, the writers, Coppola as the director. Right. I mean, this is some heavy hitting stuff here. It was written by Christopher Coppola, who is Nicolas Cage's brother. Also co-written by, I'm going to butcher his name, but Nick Vallelonga, I think is how you say his name, who is the guy who wrote Green Book, and he won an Oscar for Green Book.
I didn't know that he wrote Green Book.
He did,
It blows my mind that he has his name attached to this film because I can't see any of him in this movie. All I see is Christopher Coppola.
Yeah.
Well, when was Green Book written?
Not long ago. I mean,
it's like maybe
couple years back.
30 years
to
hone the craft since Deadfall. So.
Yeah, he's had some time to get
maybe
better.
You could make a good movie. You could write one good script in 30 years.
This was shot by Marseille Alberti, I think that's how you say it, who also shot The Wrestler and Creed. So again, another everybody involved in this movie has gone on to amazing things.
Yeah, well, everybody but Sarah. Years down the road, she married Ducky from Pretty in Pink, and then allegedly had her ex-boyfriend try to kill him back in like 08 or 09. It was a huge story at the time.
Oh my God.
Allegedly. Yeah, it was pretty nasty.
But there were no convictions or anything, right?
Yeah, nothing, because they had no evidence to prove one way or another.
Wow.
Yeah, so, I mean, I guess you could say she went on to great things.
But she wasn't the trigger woman?
We see what you did there.
See, you learn all sorts of things on this show. You wouldn't have learned. Rotten Tomatoes, of course, gave it 0%. This is the only other movie besides Grand Isle that has gotten a 0% that Nicolas Cage has been involved in at all. So we have 94-ish movies to go. I'm sure that Nick Cage will probably put out about 12 movies in the interim. If he sticks to his 6 movies per year.
We're set for life. If we could turn this into a career, we won't have to work at Honest Day in our life ever again.
He's only, 55? He's got a lot of years left in him.
Yeah, he's got a lot of years left.
So that was...
I gotta say, though, real quick, sorry. I feel like after having watched this, giving Grand Isle a 0 on Rotten Tomatoes is pretty harsh. Because that movie was much, much better than this.
Yeah.
Wonderful tale that we're about to...
It's the amount of critics who like the movie.
Exactly.
I know.
I was just about to get to that. It's actually only was reviewed by 5 people. So, that's not a very good sample size.
Right.
No.
But the audience score is still 25%, which is substantially lower than either of the first 2 movies that we watched. It got so on Rotten Tomatoes, it's a 2.6 out of 10, which, if memory serves, Grand Isle was like 3.4 or something like that. So, yeah, we're definitely... This is definitely a worse movie than Grand Isle.
Oh, by far.
But we'll get to it forever from now in the Cageometer. I feel like it's actually because of Nick Cage. It's a little bit better just because of the zany, wacky performance that he gave in this movie.
How about a Coppola quick facts?
Here are a couple of Here are Coppola quick facts about Deadfall. Michael Biehn only starred in 2 movies in 1993, Deadfall and Tombstone. I mean, Tombstone might be my favorite performance that Michael Biehn has ever given. I mean, everybody always points at Aliens and Terminator, but like Tombstone as Johnny Ringo, he's so freaking good in that role.
I've only seen him in Terminator and Aliens.
Have you not seen Tombstone?
Really?
I have not seen Tombstone.
Oh, you should really watch Tombstone. It's so good.
Yeah, I do want to watch it.
I'm not a big Western fan, but it's good.
It's
but
great,
I didn't realize those were... I didn't realize they came out in the same time.
As I was watching this movie, I was like, Michael Biehn, it's a good actor from what I remember, and
he was coming off of
at the very
Aliens.
least he's got some charisma and some screen presence. Not in this movie. So I was doubting myself. I'm just wondering what happened.
There's a lot of forgotten Michael Biehn roles that aren't in those upper echelon blockbuster movies that he's famous for. Val Kilmer was originally slated to star in the main role of Joe Donnan, but he pulled out at the very last minute, and it's potentially to go do Tombstone because he was also in Tombstone as Doc Holliday, and he absolutely stole that movie. So he would have detracted from Nick Cage's incredible performance in this movie.
Well, eventually when we get down the road to The Rock, we'll revisit these 2 gentlemen sharing the screen again, because Michael Biehn was also in that.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so I have seen him in that, but I don't remember it.
Yeah.
I was a kid, but I saw that one.
Punk metal band Snot. I don't know if you guys ever listened to Snot. They were kind of they sort of came out in that era of Sublime, kind of in between Sublime and the new metal movement with Korn and all those types of bands.
Okay.
But they recorded a song called Deadfall that is based directly on this movie. And it was one of their bigger songs. So it's kind of a fun fact. This movie, of course, includes 3 Oscar winners. Nick Cage, Nick Vallelonga, who did Green Book, and James Coburn, who actually won an Oscar 4 years after this role for the movie Affliction.
He was a good actor in this.
Yeah, he's a great actor. And everything I've ever seen him in, he did a lot of westerns and stuff too. But it also contains 2 Oscar nominees: Talia Shire, who did Godfather 2 and Rocky, and of course Peter Fonda, who was nominated for Easy Rider, and then I think he had a Best Supporting nomination for Yuli's Gold. And then the final Coppola quick fact that is mind-blowing to me, but there is a caveat to it. But in 2017, they made a prequel sequel to this movie called Arsenal, starring Nicolas Cage as Eddie King. And he dresses exactly the same, kind of talks the same, but everything I've watched of it, it is not the same character, and it is not the same story or anything like that. It's set in the present of 2017's present. So I think it's more of like a spiritual sequel.
Yeah,
they just kind of picked up Eddie King out of this movie and put him in this really looks like mediocre kind of like crime drama of some sort.
Yeah, I guess we'll see.
What a waste. Yeah, what a waste though.
But it's funny, like seeing him 30 years older wearing that ridiculous wig and mustache and the leisure suits and all that stuff.
This looks like Weekend at Bernie's looking guy.
It's time for the main event. Here comes the breakdown. Act 1, the setup.
Are you guys ready to get into this incredible piece of cinema? The largest think piece film of the 90s, I think. Just a brilliant film. Our story begins with the names of all the Hollywood elite who appear in this film for 5 minutes each, proudly displayed in lettering larger than the actual title of the movie. I don't know if you saw that. Talia Shire, Nicolas Cage, Charlie Sheen, Deadfall.
I noticed that the credits started, it did the title of the movie, and then the credits kept going. They kept
a lot
playing.
of times they'll put the stars, the main stars first, and then they'll kind of go into the bit
but
parts
I'm
after.
used to it doing that, and then it has a title, and then like something on screen happens, and then you'll just have the following credits, supporting cast sort of peppered as the movie starts.
Yeah.
This was black screen, cast, credits, title, still stayed on a black screen, kept going with cast and credits before the movie actually started.
If you notice, the movie starts to a score that's a little bit Untouchables, sprinkled with a little bit of Psycho and slathered in like a Hanna-Barbera sauce. Some weird music throughout this whole thing that's like really heavy-handed throughout. I kind of hate it when the music tells me how I'm supposed to feel every second of a movie. Occasionally we need some moments where there's no music playing.
Or subdued music that just sort of lurks in the background and you don't really notice it, Yeah. Which is a lot of good soundtracks are. Mm-hmm. You don't even notice them.
We hear the voice of Joe, the hero of the film, monologuing while driving a big shot. He says he's a big shot in that opening scene, to score some cocaine. They spot a car inside a generic bad guys meet here to exchange goods warehouse. The big shot says he wants a taste before he'll give over the money, and boy, does he ever take one. He sucks the coke off of his fingers like he's eating the last crumbs in a box of powdered donuts, and then he says, "I'm seeing angels," after he shoveled cocaine into his mouth.
Does anybody know? I don't know drugs that well. Can you eat cocaine and get high off of it?
From what I've heard, you can you can rub it on your gums and you get this kind of the same instant high because it goes into your bloodstream. But I don't know if you just.
It looked like he just had powdered sugar on his fingers and just. Which I'm sure is what it was.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
Eventually, it into your blood.
Oh yeah, I guess movie making
judging
in
from
the
this
80s,
movie,
90s
could have been real.
Yep.
Joe heads to exchange the money, but spots a wire conveniently hanging out of the drug dealer's suit sleeve.
Yeah.
Why would you keep the wire there in the first place?
It didn't look like it was connected to anything either. It was just hanging out.
No, it's just dangling.
Came undone, I guess, from his chest or something. I don't know. He exclaims that it's a setup and promptly shoots the dealer in the chest. Suddenly, the police burst in and Joe is shot twice in the chest himself, but not before telling the big shot guy to bail. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but he's shot in the chest while he's standing, and then he falls on the ground, and then he's shot in the chest, but there's absolutely no sign of the first shot. It's just gone. It's just like they got a fresh squib and did a whole nother shot there. The big shot escapes with the police barely giving any chase, but of course we find out that the whole thing was a setup. Joe's in on it, the cops are all fake, and the whole con was meant to steal the big shot's money that he had. One cop pops a good and plenty, and then Joe rolls over and gives the cheesiest laugh of Michael Biehn's career. That laugh, like, it's just the dumbest thing I've ever seen. He did Tombstone the same year as this movie. Before this movie. Or no, he did Tombstone after this movie. So he did this and then went on to do that incredible performance. Everyone has a good chuckle except for Mikey, the drug dealer, and as we find out, Joe's dad, who is still in the fetal position on the ground. It turns out that the gun Joe capped his pop with had live bullets instead of blanks. Mike's last words to his son are, "Get the cake. My brother took the cake," before dying in Joe's arms and making that weird little squeal noise. I don't.
Go get it.
I don't want to spoil anything for the end, but like I'm guessing that was like a performance that he was giving, his character. I don't know. The real cops show up and everybody scrambles. We see Joe boozing it up on the floor in his underwear while Peter Fonda smokes in a chair next to him, which is really weird. Joe explains that he remembers loading blanks into the gun, to which Peter Fonda produces the gun that actually had the blanks in it, sending Joe into a complete self-loathing spiral of guilt. Next, we see them burying Mike's body. Peter Fonda tells, I don't know what Peter Fonda's character's, I think it was Pete, which is convenient.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Peter Fonda tells Joe to leave town, and Joe spots a woman with red hair placing a rose on his father's grave. Peter Fonda phones in this horrible performance as he hands over
so good.
what Joe's dad had on him at the time of his death, which includes a red key that belongs to a locker at a bus station.
I almost forgot. This is all your father had on him. See ya.
Holy hell, man. That was like...
It was amazing.
That
like,
man
just sort of like
was nominated for an Oscar.
He just sort of like says, I can't even remember what he exactly says, but he like kind of grabs his eyes, like the bridge of his nose.
Yeah.
Like he's crying, and then he just stops and then just drives off.
In hindsight, okay, so like after watching it the second time, I kind of like picked up on a lot of the people, spoilers, because this is, this is all leading to the reveal that Joe himself has been conned this entire time. But everybody that was in on the con has kind of a fakey, shitty acting performance at some point.
Yeah.
And I think it was supposed to be the characters were crappy actors.
Yeah.
But the people playing the characters
but
get
it's so
blamed
early
for
in the
shitty
movie,
acting.
it just seems like you're getting a ton of terrible performances.
Right.
As a viewer, you're like, this is awful.
It was really bad.
It was a poor way of trying to foreshadow down the road.
Joe conveniently finds his dad brother's Lou. I wrote this really weird. Joe conveniently finds his dad's brother Lou's address in the locker and hops on one of the nearby buses that was heading to Santa Monica. It's like, what's
really
the most convenient place we could put all of these things together?
Yeah, like Pete gives him a key to a locker at a bus station that he could just hop on a bus at, and
that has the address of Lou,
right?
In like a little thing, On the bus, Joe opens his dad's gym bag, finding his inheritance, which includes some dirty underwear, a gun, a torn photograph, and an unsent letter to his brother. Also very convenient, but of course we find out that it was all a plant. We found out in the letter that the brothers hated each other, and something had driven them apart, most likely a woman. Suddenly, a man in an obviously fake beard pops a good and plenty, alluding to the fact that he is the same cop from the beginning. He then seductively watches Joe nod off on the bus. Joe apparently doesn't recognize this guy. He's most likely known for years thanks to the Spirit Halloween store beard.
It's not even like wearing sunglasses or anything. Like, it's just you put a fake beard on somebody and the rest of his face is normal. He's right behind him.
Dave, is that you?
And then the good and plenty. He's like, that's normal.
Man.
Everybody eats that.
Like, do you know anybody at all who eats good and plenties?
No.
Let alone regularly enough that's like one of their character things. Like, if you had a buddy who always ate good and plenties,
it would be
that'd
pretty
be what they were known for.
Yeah.
You'd instantly recognize them, even if they weren't wearing a fake beard.
It's like if I had a friend who ate a Mars bar or a O. Henry or something. Like, nobody eats that candy anymore.
Or Charles and Chew or something like that. Yeah, you'd recognize it.
Out in California way, Joe does what all Californians do on a Saturday and pops into the local farmer's market. There he spots a bookie operation of some nondescript nature going down involving a salted or unsalted pretzel and like some numbers on a piece of paper.
What?
And
I forgot about that because it doesn't really seem to lead anywhere, and it was so nonsensical.
And that guy was like, just giving his all for that one little bit part that he has of like giving the guy over the money and the salted pretzel and shit. He was shooting for the fences on that.
Yeah.
A waitress hits on Joe by offering him a nice maple spiral donut to go with his coffee. Joe blows her off and sits down at the only dirty table in the entire food court, where he hits on a kid named Mitch instead.
My wife, she's a server, and she immediately was like, I fucking hate when people sit at the dirty table because then you have to run over and bus it, and clean it off for them. I mean, and they get all flustered about it.
Every other table was clean. If you look in the background, he could have sat at any table, but he sat at the one dirty table.
See, I think a lot of these things, now that we're mentioning them in hindsight, I think were intentional to tip us off to certain things. Like, he may have done that on purpose so that the busser would come over so that he could grill him for information.
So that
actually
like makes a lot of sense.
Bro, the thing with the good and plenties, I'm thinking maybe it is a reverse. Like, it's showing us that Joe is not observing that this guy is obviously his friend's, his coworker or whatever.
He's actually really shitty at this.
Yeah, and there are other parts in the movie where Joe is really terrible at things.
Joe offers his kid Mitch $20 to let Lou know that he's looking for him. Suddenly, we hear the sound of cards snapping together, and we see him. Finally, the man we've all been waiting to join the festivities. Nick Cage asks Joe to pick a card in a voice that could only be described as Nathan, the retarded kid who always is trying to get Jimmy Valmer on South Park, trying to sound like a tough guy. It's pretty close, right?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that's spot on.
Quick fact, Nicolas Cage was told he could dress however he wanted for this role. He could do anything he wanted. So what you see is what Nick Cage came up with. The wig, he's wearing contact lenses the entire time, so he looks glassy-eyed and glazed over. The mustache he grew out for it. The leisure suits, like all of the weird suits that he's wearing the whole movie, and the sunglasses, that was all him. That was Nick Cage.
And again, his brother's the director, right? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that must have been really fun to film. He just shows up on set, and that's what he's dressed like.
That's part of the thing I think about this movie is that he was having fun. He's like, oh, my brother's directing it. I can do whatever I want. I'm going to just go as far out there as I can go. He forces Joe to pull a card from the deck, which turns out to be a Joker. Joe scoffs at his trick and then tells him to get lost, which really pisses Nick off. And he reveals himself to be one of Lou's henchmen, which bodes really well for his uncle's operation that he's got going on. This weirdo. He leads Joe to a back room where we meet Mike's twin brother, Lou. Joe is understandably shocked when he sees a spitting image of his dad standing in front of him, only with gray hair instead of black hair. Also, there's like a scar that Mike has, I think, on his face. That's pretty much the only difference. Nick Cage, whose character's name is Eddie King, stares at Joe for way too long with glazed eyes, holding a gun on him. If you watch that, like, yeah, you're supposed to be focusing on Lou, but like Nick Cage is over here with this stare down with the gun pointed at him. Lou tells Sweaty Eddie to put the gun away, and he gets Joe a glass of water, then pops a bunch of pills and shakes his head like a basset hound in the background. It's just incredible. Lou says he already knew his brother was dead, and Joe lies about having an involvement in the death. Lou tells.
Hold on a second.
What's your cat
doing? You can see it. He just ripped the poster off the wall.
I even watched him do it.
Hey!
You can't make this shit up.
Lou says he already knew that his brother was dead, and Joe lies about having any involvement in his death. He says that Mike was doing a con, but he wasn't there. He just heard about it. But then he says that he's been in on these cons and stuff. I don't know why he didn't admit to the fact that he was involved or was at least there when it happened. Lou tells Joe to head out on the town with cool guy Eddie with the glassy eyes, who gives Lou a big thumbs up and like $1 million smile there. Just it's a crazy look on his face. Joe agrees in order to gain Lou's confidence, and Eddie is obviously not pleased that he has competition for Lou's affection. Joe and Eddie head over to pick up Eddie's way too hot for a ridiculous leisure suit wearing weirdo drug addict with a wig girlfriend. Joe starts asking a lot of questions for a guy who just came into town about Lou and Eddie's business operation, while Eddie drives a convertible Cadillac and wears a white suit with a black shirt and a gold bow tie, which is a look I've never seen anybody else pull off in my life. Besides maybe like a 40s gangster or something like that. Maybe that was what he was going for, because he does kind of dress that way sometimes. Like he's trying to fulfill some fantasy of being a mobster from the 40s or something. Eddie is weirder than hell as he gives his girlfriend Diane some flowers, saying, "Ah, shucks," and kicking the ground like a preteen in a 50s movie.
It's like watching an alien wearing a human suit.
Yeah, it was
trying to go on a date.
Really fucking weird, man. She unceremoniously chucks the flowers in the back seat and promptly starts making eyes at this stranger, Joe, who's in the front seat, and they all sit in the front seat together for some reason. You'd think Joe would sit in the back or something.
In the back.
Eddie says,
"Well, now that we're all one big happy family, what do you say we have some fun time family fun?"
Then explains that they're going to go do a pigeon trop scam, and then freaks the fuck out when his car won't start. And then they speed off. So far, every moment that Nick Cage has been on screen is a Cagiest moment.
Yeah.
He's just... You can't take your... I mean, say what you will about his performance, but like you can't take your eyes off of the guy. You would never have any idea from the moment he first shows up on screen to the moment he leaves what the fuck he's gonna do. He's just... Anyways.
Yeah. Which is great for the character.
That, yeah.
That's the character. Yeah. He's an unhinged drug addict psycho.
He's unpredictable, and he nailed that to the... Oh, man, it's perfect.
Yeah.
I feel like this movie is a series of of just like guest starring scenes where an actor comes in and steals the limelight away from the main character we're supposed to be following.
I think that was kind of the idea, was that Michael Biehn was supposed to just kind of be there for all these kooky antics to happen around him. They head to a bar where a 2-time Oscar nominee is slumming it as a bartender, which is a pretty spot-on depiction of Los Angeles, actually. The bartender is, of course, played by Talia Shire, who is Nick Cage's aunt. And I think that would make her Christopher Coppola's aunt as well.
Must have been really awkward to act in that scene with her in that top that she was wearing with her tits like almost hanging out. Yeah. Just playing a skeevy bartender.
Yeah. I've seen her in quite a few things, and this is one of the worst performances I've ever seen her give. It's pretty bad. She spots Diane's gorgeous bracelet and Nick Cage counting out hundreds like Scrooge McDuck for some reason before Joe walks into the bar and orders a drink. Diane makes a phone call in a nearby booth and then tells Eddie that they should blow the joint. He says, "You got it, baby." And they head out.
Trying to talk like Scarface now.
You got it, baby. Yeah. Talia Shire eye rapes Joe, and he heads to make a phone call. Suddenly, Eddie and Diane run back in looking for the bracelet that the bartender said was gorgeous like 40 seconds earlier, but they think she might have left it in a restaurant or something. Eddie sobs weirdly while talking about the bracelet and then offers her $500 if she finds it, the bartender. $500. They leave, and then Joe walks immediately out of the phone booth holding the bracelet, and the bartender gives him $200 for it. Coppola, however the hell you say it. Coppola, quick fact, Nick Cage's brother, Mark Coppola, is the guy who's wearing the jacket with all the patches and shit on it throughout that whole scene. He's a spitting image of Nick Cage if you catch it right at the tail end.
Credits, and he's credited as Bob. And I was trying to remember who the hell Bob was in the movie, but I was like, oh, there's another Coppola in there.
I had no idea that he had a name. Just guy at
he's
bar.
credited. I didn't even notice it until I was watching the credits at the end, and the whole time I was like, who the hell is Bob? Was it one of like his Mikey's henchmen or something? But looking at pictures of him, I didn't recognize him. So I guess he was a random extra at a bar.
Yeah, they didn't really make it clear, like on the IMDb when you look at the credits and stuff, like who he was. It should say like Bob guy at bar or something like that. After scamming this poor bartender, they celebrate by stopping at the corner market for some gum. These crazy gangsters. Eddie creepily makes out with Diane and calls her mommy a bunch. because I mean, what else are you gonna call her? We're gonna go home real soon, mommy.
We could tell from a later scene that he's got mommy issues.
That is true.
So this is just layering that character,
layering this amazing character. Joe picks up on Eddie's girl the second he leaves the car. She explains that she's just passing time with him, and that, quote, maybe they're just running around in circles that just happen to touch. The sun and the moon do that. They call it an eclipse. Which is somehow dumber than Eddie calling her mommy 3 seconds earlier. It's like one of the worst lines in the whole movie. I know they're going for this noir feel for this whole movie, but like, Jesus.
Yeah. Well, they did not nail it.
The guy who wrote Green Book. Eddie calls Lou, and Lou decides they should try and get the money owed by this guy named Baby, who owns or works or lives or just hangs out a lot at a strip joint to test Joe. I never really got clarity on that. I figure he runs the place, or he's like the bouncer or something.
I thought he just hung out there. Like, you know, he's the big shot. He gets the VIP booth
constantly at the strip bar.
At the totally real strip club and not a set they built in a garage somewhere.
I started calling it the baby's den.
Yeah, that's pretty good. At the strip club, Eddie dances awkwardly up to the bartender, where he explains to Joe that Baby, the biggest guy in the room surrounded by girls and gay biker dudes, owes Lou $1,500. Every person that's around him is like wearing like a leather vest with no shirt on and stuff.
My wife pointed out in this scene that the chick dancing looks like she's got like prosthetic boobs on. Like they don't look like real. Like they're not just like fake tits. Like she doesn't have any, like her nipples are just there. They don't have any definition to them. They're just like
maybe they
brown
are
patches. So she was like, is she wearing like weird nipple pasties of nipples? And then we rewound it to watch it because there's a close up when the scene opens and they just look like fake boobs. Like they just like the actress didn't want to actually be naked, so they put like fake tits on her.
I didn't notice. I mean, I was definitely looking at the boobs, but
if you look at the first scene when she turns around, there's just like maybe it was the low quality of the DVD that we had.
I thought it was because they were actually fake tits, like she had.
Yeah, they're obviously fake, but
a boob job.
But yeah, she thought they were pasties, and we watched it again, and we're like, well, they made us be actually like fake boobs, like Total Recall style. But
maybe
that's crazy.
Maybe she actually was like, was kind of like flat chested or something, and they wanted her to have big boobs.
Something, maybe. Yeah, it's weird. But anyway,
but they moved, they jiggled like real boobs.
Either that or she just has really weird looking deformed nipples, which can also happen, I suppose.
I mean, it is a strip club in the middle. Well, I guess it was at night in Los Angeles, but
yeah, that should be the A squad right there.
But it's a really low budget looking strip club. So
touche.
Yeah, like Party City, tinsel hanging down behind the stage and stuff.
It's the sign of quality, ultimate quality.
I think everybody's sitting in fold-out chairs.
Easier to clean.
Eddie snorts some Coke or poppers or something from a little bottle. I wasn't sure exactly. I put in the questions, what exactly was that? I mean, the first couple times I watched this movie before this, I thought it was just him snorting Coke out of it, but it was like, why would you snort Coke out of a little bottle like that? He snorts that Coke, and then he laughs like a lunatic at the thought of Joe dealing with Baby. And then Joe promptly comes out with Baby, and they hug and high five and kiss and stuff, and they're like best friends 3 seconds later.
Yeah.
Eddie's pissed when Joe produces the money, and Diane gives some bedroom eyes and a please take me away from this dopey weirdo look. Fake beard guy is waiting at Joe's hotel when Eddie and Diane drop him off, but again doesn't interact with anybody, just pops another good and plenty, and thus we see him there. Joe heads straight to Lou's office. He breaks in and he finds some plane tickets to Tahiti in the desk and a picture of Joe's mother in between his dad and Lou, which leads him to question if his mother was the cake that his dad was talking about. Like, she was
slice.
She was the cake. She was the thing that was stolen away.
Act 2. Let's get some motivation up in this thing.
Joe heads back to his hotel room only to find Eddie's girl, Miss Eclipse herself, Diane, already in his room, presumably within a few hours of their last meeting, and she's probably still covered in Eddie's stink from when he full-on mouth kissed her in the car, which I don't know about you guys, but that was pretty disgusting to me.
You wouldn't want to full-on mouth kiss a guy in a toupee and
I mean, if that guy's Nicolas Cage, I wouldn't say
mustache.
No.
Yeah.
So
I'd give Nick Cage a full mouth kiss.
So Diane's been raffling through Joe's stuff and asked him about a heart-shaped locket Joe has of his mother, who turns out to be the spitting image of the redhead we saw at his father's grave earlier. Ooh, I was like, ghost stuff? Who knows with these movies? Diane makes a move on Joe, but he resists her skanky ways, and Diane is forced to reveal that she genuinely has feelings for Joe and shouldn't have been so whorish, and decides to take off. But Joe stops her from leaving with his boner And despite being Eddie's sloppy seconds, he still makes love to her, and I could only describe their lovemaking as two Mormons finally experiencing the pleasures of vaginal sex. It was so
so passionless. I think it's one of the worst sex scenes I've ever seen in a movie.
It was so quiet.
It looked like they were sleeping through it. It was like they were sleep fucking. And the music was terrible.
I was so uncomfortable watching it because it was just so bad.
And it went on for a long time, too.
Yeah.
It did.
Focused a lot on Michael Bihn's ass, too, for some reason.
Yes, it did. He's like, I got a great ass. Make sure you get a few shots.
You're getting the good side.
Get that Terminator ass. Kyle Reese up in this bitch.
Yeah, it almost felt like they were trying to copy the sex scene from Terminator, but like in like way worse, like better, like more well lit, so worse lighting for it, and just super long takes that were really awkward.
That is kind of true. It's very similar to that sex scene.
It is. It really is, actually, now that you say that. So after sex, Joe reveals during pillow talk that his mother died when he was 3, and this makes Diane love him even more. She bails and Joe heads to Lou's house to celebrate Lou's birthday. Here we find out that Lou is married to a nincompoop who is great at cooking, who he found slinging hash browns out at a truck stop on the interstate.
I had to rewind that because I heard slinging hash, and I was like, oh, so she's
slinging hash, but like, I was like,
slinging hash.
Okay, that's going to be confusing.
She's a hash-slinging lounge lizard or lot lizard?
Yeah.
I thought she's a waitress. And then, hash browns.
Yeah.
Who also, she sounds exactly like Snow White. Her voice, like she has the flittery tittery voice that Snow White has. Like it's like she was trying to do a Snow White impression.
She is the absolute worst character in this movie.
Very she's probably
sweet.
The most real.
Yeah,
she's probably the most real, genuine character. So she sings him happy birthday, and he and Joe blow out the candles together for some reason, while Blanche rudely makes fun of mentally challenged people through the power of dance.
Yeah, see, her name's Blanche too, which means white in French. So I honestly feel like they were like, sound like Snow White.
That feels like that's way too deep for this movie.
I had several moments where I make a note of things like that where I'm like, this feels like an homage to something, but maybe giving it too much credit. Yeah. Maybe it's an homage to the Terminator sex scene. Maybe that's giving it too much credit. It's an homage to Snow White because you get an actress who's doing a Snow White impression. Her name means white. I don't know.
Yeah.
Could be what he was going for. I don't know.
Yeah. Joe then produces the money he shook down from Baby the night before, which Lou says Eddie has been trying to get for months, further gaining Lou's trust. Okay. I'm going to do my best to describe what happens next, but this master class of acting is something that needs to be witnessed with your eyes, not just your ears. So next we see Eddie living it up at the strip club. He's drinking beer like a baby bottle, calling strippers mommy, and sweating like crazy. Eddie yells out for Sam fucking Peckinpah. I'm not
Peckinpah.
Is it Pa? Sam fucking Peckinpah. His word, he like slurs, so I couldn't really fucking make out half the shit he was saying in this scene. But
it was really hard to track the swears sometimes, the curse tracker, because I couldn't tell if he was just saying gibberish or if he was actually swearing a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, especially here. Because he's apparently a big Western fan, which for some reason attracts a stripper to him. After seducing the stripper...
I was very confused as to why yelling out, where's fucking Sam Peckinpah, or whatever the hell he says there, why that made Baby come over and why it made the stripper come to him. Like, what the fuck does the Sam Peckinpah have to do with any of this stuff?
I don't know.
Maybe there was a movie with Sam Peckinpah where he was like at a strip club or something, but I have no idea. All I know Sam Peckinpah from is Western movies.
I don't know.
Yeah, it wasn't until you clued me in on that. I was like, I don't even know who the fuck this guy is, because I'm not a big Western fan.
Yeah, I don't either. I didn't know that. But maybe it was another homage because James Coburn acted in a lot of Westerns or something. And maybe, maybe too much credit again.
Yeah.
This is the part where I was saying he has mommy issues too, because he's like, bring those mommy, he calls like mommy milkers or what he wants to. He wants to motorboat the chick's tits.
I love the beer bottle, like sucking it like a baby bottle.
That was so perfect. So after seducing the stripper by whispering sweet nothings to her like, I'll fuck you all summer long, sugar, Baby grabs Eddie by the shoulder from behind and explains that he doesn't like Eddie's ugly face, but he loves looking at Joe's, which kind of makes me question this gentleman's sexual orientation, which, you know,
like I said, he was surrounded by dudes in biker vests
in tight leather.
Mm-hmm. All the women were standing outside of his booth.
Yeah. And all the gentlemen were inside his booth. Now baby tells Eddie that he never burped up a cool $1,500 and that Joe used his own fucking money to pay, and insinuates that Joe probably stole his woman, which sends Eddie into a rage that would rival Donald Duck. This is where movie magic begins, and it doesn't let up until the very end of our hero Eddie. I'm sorry, he's my hero. To hear his journey. And Eddie stands up, he throws a drink in a guy's face, screams fuck at the top of his lungs for a pretty impressive amount of time. Then he beats up some random dude in a suit while yelling, "Hi fucking yeah!" All this under the watchful gaze of fake beard guy who promptly pops, yep, a good and plenty. Well, a boat horn sounds in the distance for some reason, in which I couldn't tell, was that like part of the song or was that the cue for the next stripper to come up?
It was supposed to be part of the score, but like it just
like are they down by the docks?
I don't know. It was no reason.
Yeah. I thought the same. I thought it was so random.
I was just gonna mention the guy behind him in that scene. I don't know if you were
wearing the fuck shirt.
Go ahead.
Yeah, there's a guy sitting behind them in the scene wearing a shirt that just says "fuck." As Nicolas Cage is standing in front of him, going "fuck."
I mean, I think he throws the drink in the guy's face for no reason, and then I think he spots that shirt. And then he goes, fuck, and screams.
I think you're giving him too much credit. All right, so next, Eddie then heads to his car, and he's attacked by fake beard guy from behind, who apparently is really terrible at killing people. This dude sneaks up on him with the grace of a drunk chimpanzee, loses his beard, revealing that he is in fact one of the cops from the first scene of the movie. He then spends way too long telling Eddie that he's about to turn blue and shit in his pants instead of worrying about the knife that Eddie has in his sock, which then gets him stabbed. Then he has his head smashed in a car door and gets his throat slit to the sound of Nick Cage screaming, "Okay, baby girl, who sent ya?" Full volume into his ear. I mean, like his mouth is right on the guy's ear, and he's screaming that.
Baby girl. Yeah, it's amazing.
It was that part was just.
I don't know, man. It seems like a great way to die. It's a good way to shuffle out this
kill me now, please, please. He was begging for it at that point.
I didn't get that it was the cop the first time that I watched it, like years ago. But like it was the good and plenty that signals that it's that guy, the guy from the very first scene that was one of the cops. I was like, I always was like, why does he pop a Mentos in this scene? That doesn't make any sense.
I didn't get it until I read the show notes, the synopsis. I was like, okay, the guy had a fake beard. All right, whatever. I guess because he's incognito. I didn't realize he was one of the henchmen from the first opening scene.
Presumably somebody that Mike had sent to tail Joe the whole movie and keep him safe. And to intervene when he needed to intervene to get rid of Eddie so that Joe would become the main henchman, you know.
Well, it didn't work out in that dude's favor.
Yeah.
Eddie then gets into his car, revs the engine for no reason, and then poorly peels out of the crime scene and heads to Diane's place, where he throws the best temper tantrum of all time. He screams that somebody's trying to kill him, and when she asks who's trying to kill him, he claims it's her clothing hangers.
The fucking hangers!
Fucking hangers!
Fucking hangers! Eddie spots the same type of cigar Lou smokes in Diane's ashtray and completely loses it. He snorts some more coke from the tiny bottle and starts blubbering like an asylum patient and exclaims that Diane has been fucking Lou the whole time. He then proceeds to roleplay as her being humped by his boss on the bed and throws out the best line read of all time. What am I, a fucking retard, man? Am I retarded, huh? Who's trying to stuff me out because of his greasy little nephew being around? Well, viva la fucking France, man. I've watched that scene, I shit you not, probably a good 20 times this past week.
I just, from the moment he walks in the door in that scene, he is just, magical.
The look on his face. Yeah, the look on his face after he snorts the coke. He's like sticking his tongue out. It's just amazing. He made a choice. He made a choice in that scene, and he never let up. He's like, I'm sticking to it. Like this is how this character would act in this situation.
When it comes to like those, the reels that you see of Nick Cage acting like he's insane or overacting or whatever, I guess there's the question of like, is he just going over the top in these scenes, or is there a genius at work in all of this? But like that scene in Deadfall shows up on every single one of them. Mm-hmm. And there's a bunch of scenes from Vampire's Kiss, which is our next movie, which also show up in that. One of the big reasons I wanted to do those movies early on in the show was so that we wouldn't get those thrown in our face later on. It's like, oh my God, have you guys seen these? Like, yeah, we're getting there. But yeah.
Eddie then tries to strangle Diane, who pulls a gun on him and tells him to get out. Cut to Joe spending his time wisely by counting cards in his hotel room when he's interrupted by Diane, who explains that Eddie is heading to kill Lou.
I had a question about that. Like, I thought that was going to come back in some way, but it never did.
Mm-hmm. Me too. I thought, okay, well, he's going to try to pull some kind of con or something around cards. Nope.
I'm also wondering if it was another like cue that he's not very good at this whole being a con man thing. Like, he can't count cards worth of shit, apparently.
Yeah.
He can't.
It might have been, yeah. See, now you're doing it. Taking some random thing in the movie and thinking it has a higher meaning to make it a better movie.
We see Lou in his office sporting a super weird hat, and Eddie appears from the shadows.
What the fuck was with that hat, Lou, dude? Seriously.
I don't know.
That's why he calls him Captain Jack, because he's wearing that stupid hat.
Yeah, I had to rewind it because I wasn't sure. Like, I don't know about you guys, but the video quality isn't the best for this film. It's super dark, especially in that scene, and a lot of the blacks were being blown out on my screen. So I had to rewind it and try to figure out.
I don't think they bothered to remaster this for a DVD.
No,
six movie DVD release that was a budget $12 or something.
If you guys are looking to score a deal on Amazon, you can get Deadfall and a bunch of much better movies for like $10.
Screaming deal. But yeah, it wasn't until the second time I watched that scene that I noticed that he was wearing that dumb hat, and I was like, oh, that makes sense why he's calling him that. So Eddie appears from the shadows. He then says to Lou that what anyone would say in this situation. He proceeds to give out another amazing line, which is, "You filthy double-crossing, little filthy double-crossing, filthy fucking goddamn fucking filthy little rat." Eddie then demands Lou take a card and show it to him.
There is no way that was written like that in the script. That was Nick Cage. No.
100%. I can put this on the webcam, but this is my trying to track his curses, the curse counter, as I was like in the movie. I'm just sitting there like, fuck, fucking, freaking shit, fucking goddamn, back and forth. And you see, I ran out of room with the fucks. Like, I was just like trying to cram them in there.
That was the number one curse in this movie.
Making up for that PG-13 movie that we kicked off with. Mm-hmm. Going full out on the fucks.
So Eddie then demands that Lou takes a card and show it to him. Lou continues to try and ration with Eddie, but Eddie isn't having it because the Joker is wild and lets Lou know that he's in control now since he chose Joe over him. Lou tries to alleviate Eddie's fears, to which Eddie calls bullshit in a chipmunk voice for some reason. And Lou calls him a hothead, which causes Eddie to start speaking in tongues.
Yeah, he flips
once
out,
again.
Man.
I'll show you
Eddie.
a fucking hothead,
Eddie,
man!
put
I'll
the
show
gun
you
down,
a hothead! Asshole!
You gotta see that. It's amazing. Eddie takes Lou to the kitchen and apparently says something or is singing something that was completely cut out, but we still see his lips moving.
Did you guys notice that when that happened?
I did.
It was like he was like talking, but no words are coming out, and then it cuts to the next shot. So it's like, okay, good. So it goes from the grease thing up to him, and he's doing this, and then the next. So we see Michael Biehn come in, and then it cuts back to Nick Cage at the beginning of him talking from that previous scene.
Yeah.
And he's doing this again, but he's actually saying, "You want to fuck? You want to fuck? We fuck
So
now."
they recycled
So
the
they
footage
just
and cut the
recycled
audio
that
out.
shot, but took out the audio. In the
I guess they
beginning.
pre-cycled it.
Yeah,
They played it
for some
first
reason they
and then-
pre-cycled it. Yeah, so like you said, in the next scene, we realized that they had used that scene prior, and now you find out what's going on, and he delivers that award-winning dialogue, which is, "You want to fuck? You want to fuck, huh? We fuck now!" As he like humps his way up towards Lou, who's tied in a chair.
Was he really gonna fuck him?
Hey, you might have.
I don't know. He might have.
Joe
He was out
interrupts
of his
him,
damn
man.
mind. Yeah. Well, he doesn't. He doesn't get to fuck him because Joe bursts in and wrestles Eddie to the ground. In the struggle, he pulls Eddie's wig off and reveals that Eddie's deck of cards were all Jokers. Eddie calls him a
Joker's wild,
motherfucker. Eddie calls him a motherfucker and gives him one of the greatest looks of all time, in my opinion. Before Joe pushes our hero's face into the fryer and unfortunately turns the only interesting character in the movie into a deep-fried Twinkie. Next, we see Joe and Lou at an oil field where they dump Eddie's body down a well. With Eddie out of the picture, Lou decides to have Joe take his place on the classic possum trap scheme he has in the works, which turns out to be the exact same scheme from the beginning of the movie that ended up in Joe's dad being killed by Joe. Joe, in a very awkward way, reluctantly agrees, which to me, the first time watching, it was ambiguous. I wasn't sure if he was agreeing with him or if he was telling him he needed to think about it.
Yeah.
But then you soon come to find out that, no, he did agree to do the con.
I want to point out when he dunks Eddie's face in the fryer. It's like the way it's shot, he doesn't even move at all. It's just like he just sort of he's just face down and his hands are twitching, but he's not like struggling or anything like you would expect somebody being drowned in hot grease would do. He just kind of goes and then he falls out. It's like not thrashing around or anything. Like, I don't know.
No.
It was just they could have of all the things to not to be subdued with your performance.
Yeah.
His death
Being deep fried alive was
yeah,
the most like
his death was
tame.
the most bland acting choice that he made the entire film.
Act 3. Time to resolve some shit.
Joe heads back to the hotel where Diane pulls a gun on him because she somehow mistakes Joe, a blonde guy who dresses like a normal person, for Eddie, who dressed like a Batman villain wearing a rat's nest wig. Joe lets Diane know that Eddie is dead, and he says he suspects something's up and that his sudden promotion to Lou's main goon was too easy. He loses it over Diane asking him a question and suspects her of being involved in conning him, but quickly decides to run away with her when the con is over. This was
I didn't
super
know what that
confusing to
question
me.
was. I listened to it like 2 or 3 times and I couldn't figure out what she was saying, and then I couldn't figure out how to turn the subtitles on.
Yeah, I don't think there were any. There were no subtitles.
Yeah, I don't think there were any.
I was trying to find them for the Cage counter, the curse counter, when he was just like mumbling gibberish to see, but they weren't. Every interchange between Diane and Joe was just super confusing to me. I couldn't fully figure out their motivations, and it may have been intentional. Like I'll say that's one of my Coppola questions at the end was whether or not they're actually conning each other or not. But this whole interchange was even weirder. They just she wants out, he wants out. Why don't they just get out?
Yeah, I felt like it was like kind of Christopher Coppola had watched a ton of noir movies. And he was like, "Oh, it's always kind of ambiguous, the relationship between the male lead and the female damsel in distress." And the dame. Yeah. So maybe they were going for that, but yeah, I got that too. It's just kind of like, what a weird relationship. Like, first of all, she's dating this cartoon character of a human, and then she instantly is just like, "Oh, well, fuck this guy. I'm gonna go over to this dude." And then she's like, because he called her on her shit, she like instantly falls in love with him, and then the whole rest of the movie she's just fawning all over him, and then it turns out, of course, that she is conning him.
Right.
Spoilers.
Why does he fall for it?
Yeah, he's kind of an idiot.
Because he sucks at the stuff. Again, it's that maybe laying that he's terrible. Okay, so following this, Joe has a black and white fever dream that is part of a much better noir movie. This dream is like, it's part Ken's Burn documentary and part Vietnam flashback. It's seemingly triggered by looking at a ceiling fan, which I believe is an homage to Apocalypse Now. You can't convince me otherwise, which was directed by their uncle, Francis Ford Coppola, a much better director, a much better Coppola.
Though he has had his movies that are really bad too. I don't know if you've seen some of his later work, like his 90s work. But he had some moments.
But I have seen Apocalypse Now, and I know there's the famous scene where Martin Sheen it's triggered by the dream of the ceiling fan spinning because it looks like helicopter rotors. It makes no sense why Joe would look at that and have a dream about whatever the fuck he dreams about, but it happened in a better movie.
Like
so
laying her head on his crotch the whole time.
So the dream it's made up of like black and white still images. Like Joe's looking over old photos instead of reliving his actual human memories like a normal person would. Like it's so there's a little Ken Burns effect where it's like slow zooming in on parts of the black and white images. But it had to have been done for budgetary, like they forgot to film scenes that he would be trying to flashback to or something. I don't know.
Maybe it's like Grand Isle. We never really mentioned that during Grand Isle, but like it seemed like they didn't finish filming. But this one, I don't know. It felt like they got more than they needed, actually.
So the dream ends with him shooting his father again, and we transition back to the real world with another shot of the spinning ceiling fan. So it opens and closes this weird dream that he has. He wakes up and downs some whiskey before pulling the photo of his mom and dad out of the drawer of the hotel room instead of the Gideon's Bible. The next scene abruptly starts with an unceremonious close-up shot of the famous cake that Joe's dad was talking about, which kicked off the entire narrative we've been struggling to follow along for the last hour. Through off-screen narration, we finally learn, because Joe mentions the cake in his off-screen narration, we finally learn the cake is actually a wood box shaped like a cake containing an engagement ring. Lou then explains that he had the box made for Joe's mother and that he was in love with her, but he never had a chance to give it to her because his brother stole her away from him. So we then learned that was the connection between the three characters.
Okay, real quick. This is one area that I gave a little too much thought on. I don't know if you guys ever read Great Expectations back in the day, but
no.
Part of the story is about this old lady who was supposed to get married and gets stood up, and then she just kind of devolves into this ghostly figure.
I have seen the South Park episode for Great Expectations, but not I haven't read the actual book.
But one of the rooms that they typically go back to with her is a room with this giant wedding cake on the table that's decaying and things like that. I couldn't help but wonder if like this was his homage to that because if I remember correctly, like the story turns out that her soon-to-be husband was also a con artist and conned her into thinking that he was going to marry her for her money and all this stuff. But I was kind of like, once again, I was like, okay, maybe I'm thinking too much about it. But with some of the other weird things that we have seen in here, I thought I might throw my little 2 cents in.
It makes sense. It seems like something that he would have done.
Lou says that he wishes Joe was his kid, and he invites him to join Blanche and him on their trip to Tahiti to get to know each other better. So there's this weird scene where he even insinuates, like, to me it was like he's insinuating that Joe is his actual son. The way he says it.
Yeah.
Because he's like, hey, it's almost like you're my son or whatever, like, because you think it's his twin brother and they both love the same woman, so his kid would probably look like that if they actually had kids. But it just had this weird undertone of like, let's run away, son, we'll catch up for lost time. But he didn't quite get to the point of telling him.
I feel like this was kind of like the turning point of like, okay, now we realize that Lou is actually, the good brother, and he's on the up and up with Joe. He hasn't lied about it. Hasn't lied about anything. And also, in hindsight, we find out that he wasn't double-crossing Eddie at all. Like, he was serious, that he's like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. It was all Mike this entire time.
Yeah. So anyway, now that we're fully engrossed in a better narrative hook than the MacGuffin cake, we never see or hear about him again. It's just gone. It's out of it was the whole thing. That just seemed super abrupt to me. This whole movie is like, we're trying to learn what this cake is. They build it up like it's a big thing, and it just snap cuts to the cake on screen where he explains it's just a wooden cake with an engagement ring, and then it's gone. It's out of the movie. That's the other like father-son connection, because he offers it to Joe and says, I've been saving this ring because I was going to give it to your mom, but why don't you take it and give it to a girl at some point? Like, a dad would give his mom's engagement ring or something to his son. Yeah. And Joe says, no, you keep it. I'll get it from you later on. Just hold on to it for me. So Lou lays out this big plan for a job that they're about to pull. And he explains that the mark is a man named Dr. Lime, who deals in stolen diamonds. He says he was told about him by a friend named Harry Shaw, who was in the game, but he died of a heart attack before they could go through with the plan. Lou gives Joe a fancy watch, some money, and a diamond to show the mark. Lou asks about Joe's pool playing abilities and is happy to know that he's crap at it. So Joe reluctantly makes his way to a pool hall. In the next scene, he walks up to the guy behind the counter and simply says, billiards, as if a man would be looking for anything else in a place exclusively devoted to the game of billiards.
I'm guessing that maybe they had pool too, or something like that.
Yeah. Wait, are they two different things?
Yeah. Billiards and pool are completely different. Pool is you hit the ball into the holes, and billiards is you have to bounce the ball off of the sides.
Right. Well, then I'm going to change my notes because I didn't know that. I didn't realize there are two different things. Man then hands him a set of balls and points toward the back of the pool hall, directing Joe to the tables in that direction. For some reason, instead of any of the dozens of other open tables, including the ones he just walked past to reach the counter, which filled the room. I didn't realize that those were pool tables, not billiards tables. So
yeah, but
just ignore that.
I don't know. I only saw the billiards tables, but you might have been able to see pool tables in the background. I don't know.
In any case, this scores Joe a game with a super flamboyant billiard player with a crack nail named Fats, played by none other than Charlie Sheen, who I'd forgotten was in the credits. So when he showed up, I was like, holy shit, it's Charlie Sheen. And holy shit, that's what Charlie Sheen used to look like instead of like a melting wax candle that he looks like nowadays. He was a really sharp-looking guy.
Yeah. He was a cool dude back in the day.
Yeah. Judging by his outfit, Fats apparently raided Eddie's closet and stole the rings off his body after he died. He's wearing like this weird, like red, like it's like Guy Fieri looking suit almost.
I'm gonna take you to Flavor Town.
He's a very eccentric dude.
They agree to a match with the heavy stakes of $1,000 per point on a table that's a little more private, the right temperature, and a Corsair. As if we're supposed to know what that means.
We all know what Corsair.
Maybe this was product placement. Maybe Corsair billiard tables, paid
That's
for.
How they financed this crazy
Again,
movie.
I don't know the world of pool or billiards, so maybe that is a super high end. Like you said, this watch is a Rolex. Everybody knows what that means. He has a friend whose name is apparently Sausage, set up the game. He just says, I thought he was actually talking about sausage at first, because he just says, like, Sausage set up the game. And I was like, sausages? What? Oh, he's talking to a person. Sausage looks like a Goodwill version of Christian Slater and adds nothing to the scene except to smirk like a doofus at Joe and sneeze like an idiot so that Fats can lose a point. Coppola quick fact, Cary Elwes and Tom Waits were both considered for the role of Morgan Fats Grip before Charlie Sheen wisely took that career-defining part.
God, either one of those would have been really interesting.
I was just thinking how that scene would have played differently with.
I think Cary Elwes would have been pretty similar, but Tom Waits, that would have been so different.
Yeah,
I kind of want the Tom Waits version. Like that just seems. I don't know. Fats explains that this is the rare occasion where 1 + 1 = 1, which I think means they're playing one-on-one for $1,000 a point, and seems to be a completely unnecessary piece of dialogue that only exists to make Fats seem like a douchebag.
Yeah,
I thought maybe it could also, on watching it again this morning, it could have also be a play on words, like one, like he's gonna win, like 1 versus 1 = 1. I don't know. That's too much credit. It didn't make any sense.
I was just like, is this just him trying to seem like poetic and elegant and?
Yeah, which does fit the character a little bit because he does wax about poetry at different points.
Maybe this is like he's referencing something. Maybe it's another, because he talks about Mark Twain in the next. Next bit,
So Joe then Fats proceeds to whip Joe's ass 25-1 while talking about how much Mark Twain loved billiards and snapping at Joe obnoxiously throughout.
That, my friend, was poetry.
He imparts such gems of insightful wisdom as Mark Twain's real name was Samuel Clemens. And
did you know that?
And this game's all about geometry. Real genius level stuff. He's just a pseudo intellectual, like, pool's all about geometry. Like nobody would know that shit. And then he makes a shot and he's like, but I call that pure poetry. Yeah. So there's your poetic, maybe he's trying to be a waxing poetic.
He is the most refined and elegant person in the room. The most intellectual of all of them.
Yeah, big brain.
So in this scene, I took this directly off of IMDb because I would screw it up, but this is, we don't know anything about billiards, obviously, but in this scene, Joe and Fats are playing 3-cushion billiards, in which the cue ball must carom off both object balls and contact the rail cushion at least 3 times before the last object ball. However, Fats only touches 2 cushions on his 2nd and 25th points, which would be in a loss of a point, and he wouldn't get anything for that, and it would be Joe's turn. So in the movie where they're like talking about how he is so fucking amazing at this game and that Joe couldn't possibly fathom the geometry involved in this game, they still managed to get it wrong.
I was like, I didn't realize that I didn't notice there were no pockets on this table. Like it's not a pool table, it's a billiards table. So at my first watching, I'm glad that you wrote this in because I rewatched it this morning again and made more sense. I was like, they're playing the most confusing game of pool I've ever seen. Like at one point, Joe hits the yellow ball instead of the cue ball, which I didn't think was a mistake you could possibly make in pool, but it's because he was playing with the yellow ball and Fats was playing with the white ball, the cue ball. That was when he sets up, that's what they both have their own ball they're playing with. So I thought they were just doing trick shots. Like that was the game, was they were just doing weird trick shots, but again, it's billiards. So that's the whole point.
So when they set up and when he says, "Shall we lag?"
Joe lanes up on the left and Fats is on the right. Yeah. From their orientation, Joe's got the yellow ball, Fats has the white ball, and that's the 2 balls they stick with throughout the rest of the game.
Okay.
So Joe was playing with yellow. That's why in one shot he hits the yellow ball, and I was like, "Wait, what the hell?" I didn't notice the first time that was his ball. But anyway, I didn't realize I would have such a lesson about billiards watching this movie. But
there you go. That's the main takeaway from this movie. So billiards and pool are different.
Nevertheless, Fats determines Joe has to cough up $25,000. When Joe tells Fats he doesn't have the money, Fats calls some goons from the back room, and Joe produces the watch Lou gave him, which has diamonds on the face. Fats says that he has a way of finding out if it's a fake, and he sends him to the resident diamond expert, conveniently working out of the back room of the pool hall, who for some reason dresses like a Bond villain and has a gold metal arm that doubles as a pair of kitchen shears. just has this claw.
This is the most. I mean, say what you will about Nick Cage's character, but this is just fucking ridiculous. This whole character, like. Where the hell did this come from?
Yeah, between him and his henchman, the face that one of the henchmen makes the whole time, he's like overacting. He's like, this is my moment to shine. I'm going to fucking go to the moon.
I'll get to that, though. This is the mark of the con that Lou is setting up. Dr. Lime, played by Angus Scrimm, who I had been looking forward to seeing ever since I noticed his name in the opening credits. This actor is better known as the Tall Man from the Phantasm movie series, and he was my favorite character in the whole movie. He actually eclipsed. He didn't eclipse Nicolas Cage in terms of performances. I just really liked this character because of how fucking out of left field it is to have this random, creepy, comic book villain show up with a claw hand.
I was not expecting that.
Have you guys seen Phantasm?
Yeah.
I was like, oh my god, it's the Tall Man! Yeah.
Do you remember? Because it's been a really long time since I've seen Phantasm. Is he actually missing an arm, or is this just like
this is just
he's got his arm inside of this thing? And
no, he has both arms, and he's and the thing even works. Like that's one of my questions: how the hell does this thing work? Like, so maybe he just puts it on, and he actually has a hand, and he just likes using a claw thing because it's anyway. I don't know.
I was trying to remember that because like I know you see him in the suit a bunch, and I for some reason kind of remembered like one arm maybe being tied up or something, but. I don't remember.
I think he might lose it at some point, but no, he's got both arms because he's carrying stuff. He's super strong because he's an alien, and so he's like carrying things on his shoulder and stuff.
I haven't seen that movie since I was probably under the age of 10, so it's been a long time.
First time I watched it when I was a kid at my dad's house one night when I couldn't sleep, and he put Phantasm on for some reason, and then he fell asleep, and so I was just like
sweet dreams, kid.
Suffering insomnia while Phantasm was playing, and it's just super. This isn't about Phantasm, but that movie is super dreamlike and ethereal and really fucking weird. And it's a weird state of mind to be in while you're watching it. The second time I watched it was only a couple years ago when I really could appreciate it as an adult. It's still super weird, but anyway. Dr. Lime's office is elegantly decorated with some gnarly geodes, a tiger head on a wall, an espresso machine, and a prominent crystal ball, which I'm absolutely convinced is a reference to the flying death sphere from Phantasm. That's his main weapon that flies around. It's this metallic ball with spikes that stick out of it, and it flies out. It's like centered in the shot, like not centered, but it's right in the shot while he's talking to Joe, and you can see his reflection in it and stuff. I just
didn't even think about that.
It's got the fucking ball.
He's kind of dressed like Blofeld the whole time.
Yeah. He does. Yeah, I watched that. Noticed that again this morning. He looks like Dr. Evil. He's got the same
I was gonna say
suit
Dr.
with the
Evil.
collar and the gray. Joe explains to this Bond villain that he won the watch in a card game with a guy named Harry Shaw. Dr. Lime says Harry is a good friend and tests Joe to see if Joe knows that he's dead. This exchange about Shaw being either alive or dead may have also been some really very subtle foreshadowing to the climactic twist of the movie, but I don't want to give the screenwriter that much credit. I just noticed it on rethinking about it as I watched it again this morning that it may have been tying into that or foreshadowing it. But it was probably just him testing it. And the reaction is great because he says, oh, Shaw's a good friend of mine. And Joe says, oh, that's weird because he's been dead for the last year. And he goes, a major faux pas. That's his response. He uses random French expressions. At one point,
he said something about like, I just saw him like a week ago or something like that.
Yeah, right. And he's like, he's been dead for a year. And he's, a major faux pas. He just has this great like gravelly voice that's also soft and weird and like soothing. He's awesome. Which is why he works so well as the Tall Man in Phantasm because he's just this weird, creepy demon alien thing. Joe produces the diamond Lou gave him earlier and piques Dr. Lime's interest when he says there's 29 more of them. The doctor, who may only be a doctor in the comic book villain sense, licks the diamond like a freak and says he hasn't seen a diamond of that quality in ages. This is where he throws in another French thing. He goes, joie de vivre. I haven't seen a diamond of this quality in ages. Which I I want to think is unscripted, but I don't know.
Who knows with this movie, man?
Yeah, who knows with this movie?
Joe says the diamonds are worth $9 million, but his Texas friend is willing to sell them for $2 million. Edward Scissorhand says they have a deal and forces Joe to shake his blades. Joe does, and the deal is done because Joe has the balls to shake, not knowing if he's going to snip off his fingers. How did you know I wouldn't snip off your fingers? And he just goes,
how do you know that I don't know that you're lying?
Yeah. Don't never cross the line, Joe. Never cross the line. That's his job interview, I guess.
What exactly was he trying to say with that? Like, just trying to warn him, don't fuck me?
Yeah, because he grabs his hand again with the claws and says it like, I didn't snip your fingers off this time, but if you do... That's kind of how I took it. Next, we see Joe and Diane getting ready for the score, and they again talk about their plans to run off together. Joe expresses his reluctance to do the same con that killed his dad, and tells Diane he's falling in love with the girl who was desperate enough to fall for Eddie's charms. She tries to get him to leave instead of doing the job, and he says that she also loves the guy she just met a couple of days prior. And again, their love story is weird.
Yeah.
Back at the farmer's market / cafe, Joe runs into the girl who hit on him earlier, where she again tries to score points by offering him coffee and donuts on the house. The guy who works at the pizza place in the food court, who is evidently also in on the job, says to leave the coffee shop girl alone because they don't come any sweeter than her, and he also likes her. This scene serves no other purpose than to make us sad when this dude, spoiler, dies later. Super weird, 45-year-old pizza guy who's got the hots for this.
They don't come any sweeter than
he
her.
never talks to.
Yeah, it's like, so his character only shows up in that one scene. We didn't really see him earlier, and then she's only in that one little scene.
Yeah, he's in the heist. He shows up a little bit later in the movie.
Yeah.
But that's what his introduction is like. Just be a random guy working at the pizza place.
I think he was the guy that Mitch, the guy who was cleaning tables, talked to like.
Oh yeah, right.
Tell him that his nephew was there or whatever.
I just love that Lou runs this whole empire out of a food court. It's just so weird.
I mean, I'm guessing it was just like, oh well, how can all these people be together in one spot? Oh, there's a bunch of shops all in this little food court that apparently not very many people come to.
Film at. Yeah. Next, we see everyone involved in the job sitting at a table. The camera spins around the table to each of them, like when they smoked out on that 70s show. It's the same shot. They stick the camera on a lazy Susan and spin it around. Turns out everyone who works at the market is each in on the business, aside from the coffee shop girl, and none of them seem to question what happened to Eddie. That was a little believable. Maybe everybody probably already hates Eddie. I
can see that.
Who would want to be around Eddie for longer than a minute? Lou explains to Joe that Joe needs to shoot him immediately when the wire is revealed, or else Dr. Lime will do it. Dr. Lime, a balding guy wearing sunglasses at night, and some emo dude with a staring problem ride in a limo to the meetup. Dr. Lime sniffs some money and explains that if anything goes wrong, it's because he wanted it that way. I don't understand why.
It made no sense.
If anything goes wrong, it's my fault, or I wanted it. It's part of the plan.
It's all part of the plan.
At the meet, Lou sports a cowboy hat, does his best Sam Peckinpah impression in honor of the dearly departed Eddie. Joe grabs a couple of diamonds, shows them to Dr. Claw, who wants to see the rest. Lou refuses and decides the deal is off, and an argument ensues before Dr. Lime decides to show Lou the money. They're just hamming it up.
Show me the
money.
Up
a little bit. Joe grabs the case and spots the wire in Lou's sleeve. When the time comes to shoot him,
sleeve. Come on,
it just hangs out. Yeah, not everybody talks in their sleeve, I guess. When the time comes to shoot him, like he had his own father, he freezes, and Lou is instead shot by Dr. Lime's goons in the chest, killing him instantly. Meaning Joe is now responsible for killing both brothers. The FBI suddenly shows up and guns down everyone, including Dr. Lime's claw.
Yeah. Did you see that?
Shoots the claw. Yeah, shoots the claw out of his face. Joe escapes insanely easy with the money and spots the woman who was at his father's grave from earlier, standing by a light post, which is apparently suspended in the inky void of space. This was like another weird cut into a noir movie that they thought they were making. It's just some weird shot, you know.
That was like pulled straight out of an old noir movie, but that made sense in an old noir movie because it was black and white and like shadows would be really dark. But in this, it's just like we shot it on a soundstage and
they're standing outside of a carnival or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was almost, I think that same shot was in his dream that he had. So it almost felt like it was a weird flash forward that he had, a premonition or something.
I think that they had already filmed that and they were like, well, let's throw it in the dream sequence too.
Probably.
I mean, I think the dream was to foreshadow like that he was expecting things to go south the same way that they had before, but then he also has things that haven't happened yet come into that dream. I don't know. It's
weird. Diane runs, sorry, spoiler. She runs away, and Joe chases her to a circus that is not big on locking the doors. So they're in a carnival for some reason. It looked like this. I thought they were still in the food court because it looked like the same set. Like they just ran back to the food court. But they probably just reshuffled the soundstage. They filmed the food court.
I think the idea was that he runs away with the money out of the food court after all of the craziness goes on. And he sees this woman on the street by a sign or a light post, and then he chases after her for whatever reason because she was in the graveyard at the beginning of the movie,
and she leads him into
the circus.
Yeah. Anyway, Joe catches up to her in the circus, lifts up her veil to reveal that it's been Diane the whole time dressing up like his mom. She says that she's very sorry, and out of the shadows strolls the big shot from the beginning, Peter Fonda and Joe's very much alive dad. It turns out that Joe has been the one getting scammed from the very start. Peter Fonda takes the money and Mike gives everyone their cut, including Diane, who doesn't want her cut for a second, but heads off after giving Joe a, I still love you, but money, I love this money more look. That was really weird too. Like, is she saying she doesn't want it? Is she being truthful? Is she still an act? And then she takes it anyway and leaves.
I mean, I got the sense that like they were trying to play it as if she had genuinely fallen for Joe and she was upset that she had double-crossed him and done all this terrible shit to him.
That's how I felt. But then she takes the money.
But then she just takes the money and bounces anyway. It's like, fuck it.
So a shocked Joe tells Mike that his brother Lou is dead, and Mike has a good chuckle. Mike explains that the job was nothing personal, and he did it all for the $2 million. Somehow, he's taken aback when Joe pulls a gun on him. Both men are now standing on a carousel because they're in a carnival all of a sudden. I don't know why they had to step up onto the carousel.
Well, he turns it on, and it's like, why did he turn it on? Like
Joe activates the merry-go-round for dramatic effect because now they're on a...
He just found out that his dad, who he thought he had killed, is still alive. Right. And that the girl that he just fell in love with betrayed him and has been running a con on him this entire time. And the first thing he does is switch on the fucking merry-go-round.
That they're both standing on.
Well, no, he's not. It's like Mike is on the merry-go-round. Joe is standing off to the side. He flips it on and then it starts spinning and he gets on it. Yeah.
Maybe it's a visual metaphor. It's the whole world's a circus. This whole everything's gone topsy-turvy.
I get it from a metaphor and filmmaking stance, but like from a realistic, in the moment, why the fuck would you turn on that merry-go-round?
Yeah.
And why is it so easy to turn on the merry-go-round? Like that's all it is one little switch. There's no like breaker or anything like that. Anybody could just walk in and just switch that thing and turn on the merry-go-round. Are they really that simple?
Maybe they were back then before regulations and the government. So on the merry-go-round, let's just go in now. Mike tells Joe that he has to admit it was the best con of their lives and asks what Joe thought of Diane. He says the girl Joe slept with looks exactly like his mother, which is disturbing. And then he says that Lou killed Joe's mom in a con gone wrong instead of childbirth. So he just said it wasn't anything personal. He just wanted the $2 million, but then brings up that that Lou is the one who killed his wife.
the one who killed his mom. But I think that it was the opposite, because look at what Mike just did to his own son this entire time. So I think that they were trying to insinuate that Lou was actually the good guy and actually cared about Joe's mom, but Mike fucked her over and ended up getting her killed. And
then Mike was trying to say that it was the other way around, to get Joe back on his side, or not to shoot him or whatever.
Yeah, that's how I took it.
Side note, James Coburn's acting in this scene is awful. It's such a weird whiplash to see him playing Lou the whole movie, is, doing a really good job of it. And then this, he's just like, it's like he's talking to nothing off screen on the merry-go-round, and he's just saying the lines. And again, it would have been intentional, because maybe they're all con men and they're terrible at it, I guess. I don't know. But it just seemed so out of place. Like it was a weird reshoot they did with a different director. And it just was like, I don't know. The line reading was just so off.
I mean, in this scene, he's supposed to be telling the truth. So him doing a bad acting job doesn't really make sense, because the Peter Fonda thing, I think, was to insinuate that he's just a bad actor. His character is a bad actor. Yeah.
Unless he's not telling the truth, and this is still him being a bad actor, because like you said, he's trying to convince Joe that Lou was the one that killed his mom when it may have actually been him. I think we're still giving it too much thought. It just seemed like a really poorly acted scene. For the climax of the movie, it just seemed like a really badly acted reveal. Joe then asks if the bullets in his gun are blanks, and then shoots his dad, revealing that they were in fact blanks. And if he had done what he was supposed to do in the con and shot Lou would still be alive. So he second guessed himself, and everything went off.
If he had shot him with the blank and the squib had gone off, his uncle wouldn't have died.
Right, and the thing would have gone off normally. It wouldn't have. His dad's con wouldn't have succeeded. Mike, though, gets scared by the shot, drops the briefcase, spilling money all over the floor of the merry-go-round. Coppola quick fact: in the final scene, when the money in the attaché case is handed over, the money is wrapped in bundles. But when the case is dropped on the carousel, the money just falls loosely everywhere because it looks cooler, to scatter all over the place. Like you have to make sense. Like nobody does a deal where they just throw a bunch of loose money into a briefcase and they're going to do $2 million deal of diamonds. They pack it all first. Joe monologues about how memories are worth more than money for some reason, a moral that seemingly comes out of nowhere, because I guess they had to end the movie on some note.
We got to throw some noir monologue in there.
And then he walks away from the life that destroyed everything he cared about as his dad scrambles to put the money back in the briefcase. Credits. Credits roll.
Ended abruptly to the point where I thought, did I miss something? Like, did I miss? Like, did he say something that I totally missed, or was I rewound it and I rewatched that last section between him and his dad, and I was like, no, it just ends. There's no resolution.
He's leaving, but he's happy he has the memories.
The memories of
all these jobs and stuff. That's the most important part of this.
All these jobs.
Drank himself into a depression after killing his dad. He thinks killing his dad. Finding his uncle.
But he's got good memories.
Having to drown a guy in hot oil, which he's clearly upset about. He's like, he sobs after he does it. He leans up against the counter. He's great memory though. Definitely beats $2 million.
When I had that Mormon sex with that girl,
I was just like,
best time of my life. It looked like
the memories we made along the way.
We have a Coppola questions before we move on.
All right, guys, I have a Coppola questions here. They're not so much questions. This one, for some reason, like usually I have a big laundry list of questions after the movie's over, but this one actually kind of tied things up fairly nicely. So I don't really have like hardcore questions. More just kind of like, why is that character doing that zany thing? A lot of those types of questions. Like, what exactly was in that bottle that Eddie was snorting the entire movie? Was it cocaine? Was it something?
What kind of drugs can you sniff? I know there's coke.
I feel like we're really showing our ignorance on drugs. Because I have no fucking idea.
I'll Google it. What kind of drugs can you kill someone with cyanide? You sniff.
I mean, I know that there were other drugs that were popular back then. Like, I've not...
Angel dust? You snort that? I think you smoked that.
The powder, like, in his mustache didn't look super cokey to me. That's why I was like... I don't know. Maybe we should just reach out, like, if any people who end up listening to this or watching it can tell us what the hell was in that bottle. Just email us at onecagepodcast@gmail.com, because I would genuinely like to know what exactly he is snorting, because it doesn't seem like Coke to me. I don't know.
Maybe he just had some smelling salts and it was ammonia, and it was just whenever he started lagging. Whoa, yeah!
The way that he freaks out like a lunatic every time he snorts it, like his babbling after
Maybe
he does
it's not
that
meant
stuff.
to be a specific drug. It's just part of him. Like he does whatever and goes crazy. I don't know.
Could be.
It's part of the mystery.
My second question is, why does Joe have a locket shaped like a heart with his mom's picture in it? Like, at first I was like, oh, he must have gotten it out of his dad's things that he got out of the bus station. But he says that he had it for years. Like, he's had it since he was a baby. So he's always had this heart-shaped locket with his mom's face in it. I mean, I'm guessing maybe it was handed down, but at the same time, it's just weird to have a locket. For a man to have a locket in the first place, let alone a locket that's heart-shaped with his mom inside of it, is weird as fuck.
That didn't make any sense to me either.
What's the deal with Charlie Sheen's coke nail in that scene?
I also noticed...
Funny fact, that was actually not part of his character. That's just Charlie Sheen's nail.
I also noticed there's a
real possibility.
I didn't notice the coke nail the first time when I watched it, but you see when he picks up the stick, the cue stick, he's got they show it. I also noticed when we get to Dr. Lime's office, the woman who's massaging his shoulders.
Yeah, she has those super long nails.
She just has one. She has a one coke nail, but it's her index finger instead of the pinky like you would normally see. So I don't know if it was.
I mean, I'm gonna guess that there was a lot of coke done on the set of this movie, and probably like a lot of people on the crew and cast were big coke addicts way before this movie ever started, and probably brought those nails with them without the intention of making them part of their characters or anything like that.
So as a joke, that may not have actually been a joke. That may have actually been Charlie Sheen's real coke nail.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, dude. You don't get tiger blood from not snorting coke.
This is more of an observation, but why the hell did Dr. Lime lick that diamond like gold member licking a skin flake from Austin Powers? Like, what the hell was with that? Is it just because he loves diamonds so much?
I guess that he's so in tune with diamonds he can taste a fake, and he was making sure that it was real. But then again, diamonds are just made out of carbon, so I don't think you could taste any difference. Like, I don't think it would taste like anything. So maybe it's the joie de vivre, as he says.
Probably tastes like Joe's pocket.
Lit.
I only have a few of these, so you guys can chime in after this one. What the hell was with Dr. Lime's arm? Like, what possible use could that arm have? Aside from intimidating people, like that's the only reason he wears that arm in every... Does he wear that arm all the time when he's at home? When he's just chilling around the house? I got
the feeling it was a prosthetic. Like, he doesn't have an arm. Yeah. He's got that as his prosthetic now. But it's like, maybe it's supposed to speak to his character. Like, he has people, he doesn't need a hand. He has people around him who do things for him. So he just uses it, as a weapon to, cut people's fingers off or whatever. That was one of my questions, was just, how does this claw work? Like, how does he, like, this is 1993. How they didn't have advanced prosthetics where you could use a nub to remote activate a scissor arm.
It sounded like it was robotic in some way. There was like some
and when it gets shot, it
mechanism.
sparks. So it's got like electronics in it and stuff. But how does he control it?
Maybe he's just moving a little lever inside of the
in his other arm. He just
with his actual hand.
Yeah, it is almost funny to imagine he just puts it on and he still has a hand. He just likes using the claw.
I'm wondering if the motivation for that character was from Blofeld, from
it looked
Bond,
like it.
because like Diamonds Are Forever is super heavy on the diamonds. Maybe Christopher Coppola saw that Diamonds Are Forever and decided, I'll just take a character from that movie and put it in my movie.
It makes it even funnier if he's dealing in multi-millions of dollars of diamonds while he operates out of a pool hall shop in the back. Like his room is just a black room in the back of a skeevy pool hall.
What was with the decor of that room too? Is like I gotta surround myself with these geodes because I love rocks and diamonds so much.
I think that's what you call low budget movie decor is what it looks like. It's just a black room, like the walls are black, the floor is black. They just covered a room and then stuck random things around to make it look sinister and weird.
It's just such an odd turn in the movie.
And he's got like a torture chair that he sits Joe down in. You notice the back of it's like plexiglass and it's just like this metal chair looking thing. But like does Fats work for him or did he work for Fats? Because Fats makes it seem like, I have a guy who can, identify diamonds for me, and he sends Joe to him. But it makes it seem like Lime is the mastermind and Fats just works for him and he's like conning people in to catch them in their web. I don't understand their relationship or their interactions.
Yeah. It's just such a okay, well, we have access to a pool hall, and I want to put this James Bond villain in my movie. Let's just put those two things together.
And they got Charlie Sheen.
And we got Charlie Sheen. Let's give him something weird to do.
Handing out coke to everybody. Let's just put him in the movie.
I have this really weird jacket I want somebody to wear in the movie. Maybe Charlie Sheen can wear that.
Although I do have to say his interpretation of that character was pretty good. I did enjoy watching Charlie Sheen. As ludicrous as the things he was saying, just his delivery and I mean, there's a reason why he was a leading man for so long.
Yeah.
Like he can just
the totally unnecessary confidence. End when he after Joe's left the scene to go into the back room and he hits the ball and it bounces off and then it hits the other one and then he just zooms in on his face and he goes, God damn, I'm good, or something like that. I'm good. But the way it's just completely gratuitous, that nothing to the movie, because the character's never seen again. We don't need to know anything more about him.
Yeah.
It's just a bit character.
Yep.
Just a way to move plot.
I feel like the whole movie was just like, I have these 3 or 4 zany nutcase characters, and I want to write a story around those, so I can have one of them pop in one at a time to kind of propel the plot along. I can have my brother play this kooky, insane henchman guy, and then I can have Charlie Sheen play this kooky, insane pool player, and then I can have a guy from Phantasm show up and play this kooky, insane James Bond character.
It's like a poorly written Coen Brothers movie.
Mm-hmm. I think that's perfect. That is a perfect explanation of it. Why were any of the guns used in the con using real bullets?
I'll piggyback off of that.
Especially in the first one when it's just the big shot. And they're not intending to shoot anybody. They're just intending to scare the guy so he runs away with the money. Yeah. Why do they even have a gun that has? Because he says, I always check the gun and make sure I had real bullets, and I got somebody else's gun or something. So presumably somebody else had bullets for some reason.
Well, I mean, realistically, probably none of them actually did have real bullets in them, because he was faked out into thinking that he actually fired real bullets, but he never did. He obviously shot his dad with a blank, but then his dad faked that he died, or that he was
right. And you're right. And he doesn't have bullets in the end because he reveals when he shoots at his dad that he didn't have bullets. So
let me piggyback off of that, because one of my questions is, why does Joe refuse to check his gun prior to every scheme to make sure that it actually has blanks in it? Because I don't know about you guys, but if I was going to be pointing a weapon at somebody or a gun at somebody and it was supposed to have blanks, and make sure it had blanks.
Well, that's part of what causes his breakdown in the beginning of the movie. He says he did check the gun and make sure, because he always checks his guns, and they gaslight him and say, no, man, here's the gun. It had the blanks in it. You use one with bullets in it. And that's part of why he drinks himself into a stupor right out of the hospital and then goes on a thing. But to that point, why didn't he check his gun in the second con when he's totally worried about shooting his uncle?
I mean, I think
he doesn't want to do the con again.
He did, but he second guesses himself because, like, he knows that he checked the first time, but yet he still ended up shooting his dad.
We talked about it earlier, but did Joe and Diane really love each other, or were they just trying to con each other? Because you can't really, like, I don't know if the movie tries to make it clear one way or the other, but it still felt, insincere if they did try to make it clear because of the way those two characters work.
I feel his monologues, he's 100% honest with, and he does say in his monologues that she was the girl who almost broke his heart at the very end when he's talking about memories or whatever.
Well, it's great memories, yeah.
Yeah. I have great memories of that girl who almost broke his heart.
I never felt like he was trying to con her. His character always seemed lost and confused by everything that was going on around him.
Yeah.
He never really seemed to have a grasp of what the hell was happening.
He does suck at this, which he does mention a couple of times. Like, he never set up any of the cons. His dad was the one directing the entire everything, telling him what role he was going to play, what he was going to do, because he presumably just sucks at it. So he just needs someone to string him along.
He did spot that bookie operation, though. So you got to give him some credit.
Okay.
That boogie operation that was set up by the craziest character in the movie. So I guess that makes sense.
If Joe wanted out, why did he bother paying Baby $1,500 of his own money just to get on Lou's good side? Like, why didn't he just leave when he found out what the cake really was, too? Like,
well, he didn't. Like, when he paid the $1,500, he didn't know what the cake was at that point.
Right, he was still trying to get in and whatnot. But like, still, if he's trying to leave, why would he drop $1,500? I don't.
I mean,
I guess it was his dad's money because he had the duffel bag full of money. So it was a necessary expense.
Was there money in that duffel bag?
I thought you'd said at the beginning when he's going through his possessions, he had. I forgot, but I think there was. So I guess that part explains it. But still, like, he still could have left it multiple times after, especially when he said he was done. But he doesn't. He agrees to keep going on. And I actually watched. When I rewatched it again this morning, one of my other questions was after he kills Eddie, and then Lou sort of guilt trips him into being his right hand man because now Eddie's dead and he needs someone else to run the job. Joe says through narration, that he agreed to help Lou with the con because he remembered his dad acting the same way and setting up every con, including the one that killed him. Mm-hmm. But I don't understand why that's a good enough reason to want to help Lou out and do the con.
Well, he says that Lou owns him now because he's committed murder, and now Lou could expose that he killed Eddie and knows exactly where the body is. Which I had a question about that. Like, what is it? Just a really big oil well? Like, does it just go straight down? Like, won't somebody find that body eventually?
Maybe, but maybe by then it'll be too mashed up by the derrick to identify what it was or what happened. Or it seemed like a weird place to dump a body. Like, it's nowhere else in the movie. There's no oil fields mentioned about anything. Like, they just happened to go there and shoot this scene for something.
I know where there's some oil fields, guys.
They. But also, like, why does Lou own him when he just saved Lou's life? It feels like the inverse would happen. Like, now Lou owes him because he saved his life. Which that brings up another question: is that, like, the whole thing with Eddie is that Mike sent Beard Guy to kill Eddie so that Joe would have to take Eddie's place on the job. But then Beard Guy gets killed by Eddie. And so if Eddie hadn't gone after Lou and tried to kill him, causing Joe to go after him and save Lou, the whole thing wouldn't have worked out. Like, Mike's plan would have failed because Eddie would have still stayed the second-hand man. Lou would have carried the job out with him, and Joe wouldn't have had to have gotten involved.
Yeah.
Or Mike knew that fake Beard Guy was an awful murderer and knew that Eddie
just trying to get rid of him,
kill him.
Right. Yeah. But then he knew that Eddie would kill him, but then Eddie would also try to kill Lou, and that Joe would intervene specifically to save his life. and that Lou would then ask Joe to join him on the con.
I mean, I guess mainly because he couldn't handle the fucking good and plenties.
Maybe Mike and Joe actually. Maybe Mike and Lou actually are in cahoots, and they were actually working together to con their idiot son and nephew. And he didn't actually kill Lou at the end. It was a double con.
It was a double con.
If only there was a sequel to this movie.
I mean, the tagline on the movie says "Trust no one." So how can we even trust that what we saw was what actually happened, and they weren't just playing Joe for an idiot from all sides?
Or Mike is Lou and Lou is Mike. There is no twin. Quick, give me the die.
You never know.
Right.
Give me the
That's what I thought the twist was going to be. I thought no, Mike never died, but there is no Lou. Mike's just playing Lou.
The first time I saw it, that was what I thought too, was that this was all like him conning him, even after death, he's still conning him.
Just to be an asshole.
I mean, it still would have worked out if Beard Guy would have killed Eddie, then Joe would have taken his place. I think the whole idea was to get Joe
the original plan.
In the thing. But then it just so happened that Joe ends up killing Eddie. But if Eddie would have ended up killing Lou, then the whole plan would have been null and void. They wouldn't have been able to get the $2 million or whatever.
Or if Eddie hadn't tried to kill Lou because Mike, I guess Mike was setting up to make it look like Diane was sleeping with Lou. So I guess that's why she was with Eddie in the first place. He sent her there to do it. To get in with him.
Yeah. I guess
to play because she was on the crew as well. So
and that's
why she immediately starts hitting
cigar,
on Joe.
Not Lou's cigar. That was in her place.
Oh, that could be it. I figured it was just planted by her to make it look like.
The second he shows up, he takes a big ass puff on the exact same cigars that Lou smokes.
This movie's better than I gave it credit for in some places.
But that brings me to one of my questions too: is would Lou really trust Eddie to bring in Dr. Claw?
Right.
Could you imagine that conversation? God, I wish we would have seen that scene.
I want to see that movie.
Can you imagine Eddie playing pool with Charlie Sheen? Eddie and Fats playing pool, and then
you're pretty good at pool, friend.
They're like, who can snort more coke? That's the bet.
Let's have a coke off between these two.
But I seriously thought about that. I was like, why would he trust Eddie to bring in
to do anything?
Why is Eddie like his right hand man for everything? It seems when he can't even get $1,500 out of a guy for like 6 months.
I know
because when he says I got the money from Baby, Lou's like Eddie's been trying to get that money for 6 months. Like, kind of a job performance. Yeah.
What's the final tally?
Curses. So we had one hell, and again, these curses are just from Nick Cage. There's other swearing in this movie, but we only track what Nick Cage says. So these are just from Eddie. So we had one hell, 2 goddams, 1 shit, 1 asshole, 2 bullshits, 3 bitches, and 34 fucks. Just so you know, the total curses for both Wicker Man and Grand Isle were 34 total. And this movie had 34 fucks alone. And I almost wanted to count the long, drawn-out fuck as like 4 of them because it was so epic, but I didn't. I still counted it as 1.
Did you count the guy's shirt as a fuck?
No, because that's not Nick Cage.
Yeah, that's
saying.
true.
If Nick Cage was wearing the shirt, I would have called it, counted it. And I will say, too, while he's having his free, I may have missed some because, again, he's like muttering gibberish. And I thought at one sometimes he was saying fuck, but he was just being like, fa or something like that, and not fully swearing. But those were the ones that I could clearly make out. And there were still 34 of them.
Wow. That's impressive.
Awesome.
I think at least half of them came from those 2 scenes where he freaks out in the strip club and then when he goes in and freaks out in the hotel room.
I'm wondering if you actually did a comparison of the whole movie, of all of the cursing in the entire movie versus how much came out of Nick Cage. If it would still, like, his amount would eclipse the rest of the whole movie.
Oh, yeah, I totally would. Yeah. There weren't that many other curses from other players or other characters. It was definitely mostly him. Yeah, it's just in the second act, pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, the one that you read that was like, what, you fucking fucker, filthy.
I wrote it out in the notes exactly the way that it was in the movie. It's like, goddamn fucking filthy rat.
Our grand total of Cage curses is now up to 78 between the 3 movies.
Wow, 78, and how many was this one?
44 in this movie alone. 34 of those was the word fuck.
Jesus.
So, yeah, 3/4 of his swears in this were fuck.
Probably 3/4 of his lines, the words in his script. We added a tracker for this episode because previous to this, we didn't have any nudity. And then once nudity popped on the screen, I was like, oh, we should probably track that too. So in this movie, and I went back and added the one slight instance of nudity from Grand Isle, which was one fancy ass in that movie.
You can see a nip slip in one part.
Yeah. Oh, is there?
When she's on the ground, when they get up after having sex next to the bathtub, she like sort of angles aside. You can sort of see her nipple. So
gotta add that.
Technically, there's a nip slip in there.
Okay. So in this movie, we had a grand total of 6 breasts. So three sets. I feel like there is a possibility that we're only going to see like one at a time. So I wanted to give the full number. So 6 breasts, one majorly way too long shot of Michael Biehn's ass. So we have a grand total of 6 breasts, 1 man ass, and 1 lady ass, and technically like 1/4 of a breast in Grand Isle, if you count that one nip slip.
just call it 1 breast.
Okay, so 7 breasts. 7 breasts so far. See, that's why we have to count them all individually.
Yeah.
So we'll move into the kill tracker. So for this movie, we had 1 kill, fake beard guy, and then we had 1 death of our
3 for hero. 3 so far.
Yeah. So he's had a kill in every movie. So we're 3 there and 3 deaths. And I feel like eventually this will either speed up or slow down. But we're on a good pace for now.
I think eventually we're going to watch a movie where he doesn't die, right?
Yeah, it's going to be weird.
At some point.
I think so.
Well, this was a real pile of shit. Let's rank this film on the Cageometer.
The most important question of the whole show, I guess we'll start with Vince. Where does Deadfall, 1993, we have to say 1993 because there is a new movie from 2012 called Deadfall that takes over all Google searches because apparently it was a much better movie.
Before we move on, why is the movie called Deadfall?
That is a really good question. I have no goddamn idea.
I tried to find out. I could not. I kept getting the new movie. It was hard to find.
I want to do that for all these movies. Like, why was Grand Isle called Grand Isle? I mean, it takes place in Grand Isle, but it seems like it has nothing to do with the story or why they called it that.
Yeah.
Why is this called Deadfall? I thought maybe like Dead Drop, like, they were doing like there's going to be a Dead Drop featuring in the movie, but there isn't. So I don't know what Deadfall is referring to or why the movie is called Deadfall.
His dad and his uncle both fell when they were shot.
Yeah, but neither one of them died. I guess his uncle died.
There you go.
We're stretching.
All right, Vince, where does this rank on your Cageometer?
Oh, God. So if we're talking strictly movie, like we're talking script, just strictly movie, leaving Nick Cage out of it, this is a 1 for me, a 1 out of 10.
Wow.
I feel bad. I don't want people to think that this podcast is about beating up on these movies or the acting or anything like that, because it's really more about celebrating Nick Cage and his acting performances. But I just have to say, like, this movie, if it weren't for this podcast, like Nigel said last time, I would not have finished it. I would have just YouTubed the clips for Nick Cage's performance. But the script is all over the place. Michael Biehn's character is just so bland and unaware of everything that's going on around him. He can't make heads or tails about any goddamn thing. But Nick Cage in this movie, I mean, I give him a 6 out of 10 in it. I mean, his performance, like we talked about, like he made a decision, he stuck to it.
Maybe
but
that's
overall, as a movie,
maybe that's something we should do is actually rank Cage's performance and the overall movie. Like add a category of the for the Cageometer. Because I kind of more rated it for Cage's performance with the movie, kind of like as the shell that holds Nick Cage in it. All right, I guess if we've decided now that Cageometer is we're going to do a movie ranking and a Nick Cage performance ranking. Deadfall broke the mold here. We're gonna change everything here.
Yeah.
So, Vince, where do you rank? Let's do Vince, your rating on both. So, movie and Cage.
So for the movie, I got to give it a 1. And I know that sounds pretty harsh, and I really do believe this. If it were not for Nick Cage and his performance, this movie would be one of the worst films I have ever seen in my life. So, saying that, I give this a 6 on the Cage performance level because he was just so over the top, but it worked in such a charming way. I mean, he decided this is how I'm gonna play this character, and he never let up until he died, and he just mailed it in there on his death scene. But the rest of it just over the top, and like you pointed out earlier, you could not take your eyes off of his performance, even when he was just in the background. Just his facial, I mean, he was in character 100% of the time. And I as crazy as the character was, I do admire that about him. I really do admire the fact that he just stuck to his guns the whole time, and it really made his scenes enjoyable.
Yeah. Memorable forever. Like I said, I saw this movie the first time, probably like 10 or 15 years ago after I saw like an internet meme of like a scene from the movie. And I was like, oh my God, I have to see what that movie is. And then I watched it and like this performance sticks with you. Like for years, you'll be thinking about this performance. So you have to give that credit. I mean, as shitty as that movie was, this movie would have disappeared into absolute obscurity if it wasn't for Nicolas Cage. So
100%. He is the only reason why you can go Google Deadfall 1993 and you'll find subreddits. If it were not for him, this movie would have been a blink of the eye. Nobody would remember it.
Yeah. Nigel, where does Deadfall fall on your movie Cageometer and Cage performance Cageometer? I'll have to figure out a naming convention of that at some point.
I have very similar feelings to Vince. The movie was awful. Like it was a terrible movie. Like it was slow. The pacing, the plot was just all over the place. It still generally made sense, but it was confusing as you were watching it. So I never really felt like I could fully tell what the hell was going on or was following along with it. I would say if it wasn't for Nicolas Cage and the rest of the cast, because the rest of the cast was actually pretty good. Like it was an all-star cast. And because, like we mentioned, the movie's like a collection of weird cameos of weird, eccentric characters. That elevated it a bit for me. I would have given it a 2 out of 10 if it was just on a movie merit. But because of those performances, I bumped it to a 3 out of 10. So it's still terrible. But because of those memorable little vignettes of different characters, it made the movie marginally more enjoyable than if it hadn't had. If I imagine if those were played by no-name actors, it would have just been a complete dull, boring, weird movie that would have just completely been forgotten. But I got to give the movie credit for those scenes, so I'm bumping the rating a bit, but it still sits at a 3 out of 10 for me. As far as Nick Cage's performance, I'm giving that an 8 out of a 10 because he is so over the top.
Have you seen Adaptation? I mean,
I have.
You gotta give some room here for some things.
Yeah, but. I was gonna say, man.
But the reason I'm giving it that much is because I cannot imagine this movie without that character in it, and I can't imagine that character without Nick Cage playing the character.
Nobody else could have played that character except Nick Cage. I mean, it was unbelievable.
He's introduced right at the right amount of time. It's like right at the tail end of the first act. He's there through the entire second act to pull you and hold your attention through the movie. He obviously put his own spin on the character. Even if he didn't, he still elevated everything else of every scene that he was in. He pulled, as weird of a character as he is, as Eddie is, he made the movie, the middle part of the movie work. Like he was what everything sort of gravitated around.
Yeah.
And again, if he wasn't in it, this thing would have just spun off the rails completely and been forgotten, and we wouldn't be talking about it today. So that's why I'm giving it 8 out of 10. And I can't say in good conscience he did a bad job acting as a weird ass, unhinged, psycho,
did an incredible job. Yes.
So that's why I'm giving it an 8 out of 10 as far as a Cage performance
alien
goes.
Character that he created, nobody else could have
just
done
the part
that.
when he's sitting in the office when he introduces Joe to Lou, and then he sits down and he takes his sunglasses off, and he literally looks like he's just completely zonked out on drugs. If he wasn't completely zonked out on drugs, that performance alone would be an 8 out of 10 just because of how well he sold you that glazed, out of focus, out of reality look that he had.
Yeah. He did have contact
without
lenses
saying anything.
Because he wanted that look, that drugged out look to him. But still,
it was just so captivating.
The sweat,
even when he's not saying it,
and the dead-eyed stare, and the.
And there's just so many things that he didn't have to add to the character, like you said. The wig and the glasses and the outfit, but. They're there, and they, I like him freaking out when he can't start the car. I almost wonder if that was unscripted.
That
because
was 100% unscripted.
It comes out of nowhere, and it just fits so well. Like I have a feeling that they just said, "Here's generally what Eddie's going to do in this scene. React to whatever the hell Nick does when he does it," and that's the direction the other characters were given, or the other actors were given.
I really get the sense that he improv'd most of his lines, like that thing that he says to Lou where he calls him a rat, but has the goddamn filthy fucking like all of that. There's no way that was written on a script ever. There's no way anybody sat down and wrote that. There's no way.
That's why I'm so generous with the rating.
On my Cageometer, I'm gonna go the movie. I agree with everything you guys have said. 2. I'm gonna give it a 2 because, good Lord, it's boring. I mean, without Nick Cage, this is one of the most boring movies I've ever seen in my life, and such a okay, we get it. It's a noir story. There's a damsel in distress. Okay. Why is Michael Biehn so just wooden and boring this whole movie when he's been such a great character in so many different movies? He is just wasted in this movie. I mean, it's just why did you even get Michael Biehn for this? Why did you hire a real actor to play that character when he's he's got nothing to do and there's no real character development? And even after he finds out that his dad has been conning him the whole time, there's no development. There's nothing happens really. It's just kind of oh, I'm shocked. All right, well, I'm leaving the game because I finally figured it out. And it's he's all smug at the end of what the fuck are you smug about? You got conned completely.
That's because he got his memories.
He's got his memories and he's going to walk away from this life. But yeah, so bad. There's little things that are kind of fun and I might have remembered them later on, like the claw guy. I probably would have thought about that at least once or twice in the couple of weeks after I watched the movie, and never again after that. And Charlie Sheen, I would have been like way back in the 90s, Charlie Sheen was in this really stupid movie that was really boring. And he was kind of the only thing that was interesting about the movie. But then, it would have been the only interesting thing about the movie if it wasn't for Nick Cage. And I'm going to give him a 7. Same thing, he invented a whole human being that didn't exist on this earth until this movie happened. And he was in that character from the second he showed up till, well, right before he got his face boiled off. But like I've seen, you know, as we go along this, you will see too, like every single movie that I have seen Nick Cage in, he gives something that I have never seen before. I've never seen any person in anything ever do the things that this guy does. Like Vampire's Kiss is a perfect example. Like when you guys watch that, it's night and day different, but still batshit insane. It's like not even remotely similar to Eddie in the slightest, but still he adds so many little things that are just like, there's no way that any other actor would have come up with that. So yeah, I think collectively we're giving him a 7 for this, which is pretty high praise for this piece of shit movie.
Here it is, the moment you've all been waiting for. These are the cagiest moments of the film.
Look at that! Fuck! Watch it now. Now you're the fuck! Hi, fucking ya! Come on, bitch! All right! Okay, baby girl! Who sent ya? Who sent ya? Oh, you that fucking low man! I'm kind of feeling all tongue-tied. I just don't know what to start. I wanted to... Oh, shucks, it's here.
Well, now that we're all one big happy family, what do you say we have some fun time family fun?
It looked like I had to pay my dues by wilding with Uncle Lou's flunky.
Fucking fuckers fucked!
Crossing little fucking filthy double-crossing filthy fucking goddamn fucking filthy little brat!
What the? Well, hallelujah, man! The Joker's wild! You trying to take me out of the game? And squeeze in your fucking nephew, huh? Well, who's sitting behind your fucking desk now? Me! I'm behind your fucking desk now! Me!
This is about Joe? Oh, God. Eddie, after all we've been through together, come on, man.
Bullshit. Bullshit.
Jesus Christ, you stupid fucking hothead! Come on, what is this? What the hell is going on here?
Huh? I'll show you
Eddie.
a fucking hothead,
Eddie,
man!
put
I'll
the
show
gun
you a
down,
hothead!
Motherfucker.
All right, that's it for this episode of One Cage at a Time. Be sure to drop us an email, as always, at onecagepodcast@gmail.com to let us know if we missed anything, or hit us up with suggestions to improve the show, or hit us with some comments, some compliments, or simply to gush about the legend that is Nicolas Cage. In our next episode, we'll break down the genius dark comedy Vampire's Kiss, the tale of a mentally ill literary agent who becomes convinced that he is slowly turning into a vampire. And oh my God, I cannot wait for you guys to watch this movie. It is such a treasure, such a freaking masterpiece.
A national treasure?
It's a national treasure. He's more of a treasure protector. The movie was a box office disaster. Like, it did really, really bad, but it's since become a cult classic and features just an incredible performance from Nick Cage. That is another one where it's just like nobody told him to do the things that he did, but oh my God, it makes the movie so much better just because of it. Make sure to check it out wherever fine films are sold or on your streaming service of choice. Until then, we will say goodbye the way we do each and every episode with our Nicolas Cage quote of the film.
What am I, a fucking retard, man? Am I a fucking retard, huh? I know what this is. You're trying to stop me out because of his crazy little nephew being around. Well, vive la fucking France, man!
Thanks for listening to One Cage at a Time. Visit us online at onecageatatime.com or follow us on the social media platform of your choice for more Nicolas Cage goodness. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and if you really like the show, become a member of our Patreon where you can download unedited and ad-free episodes as well as listen to our follow-up show, Back Into the Cage, where we re-examine each movie to discuss what we missed the first time around, answer listener questions, and wax poetic about the man, the myth, the legend that is Nicolas Cage.
Why don't you go out with Eddie tonight, huh?
All right.
Yeah, do a little bar hopping. He'll show you around. What do you think?